He gives you the cash, he so does give you the cash. He will get money from his videos, he will do what he can. My name is SparkyBooty32, and in this video I'm going to be counting down the top 10 languages that I will never learn to speak. Now, as I'm going to become a polyglot one day, I will be able to speak a ton of languages and will be able to communicate and learn with a lot of different people all around the world. But I have some limits to that, as I can't learn all the languages in the world, and some of the languages are insignificant and just aren't worth learning. And in this video I'm going to be counting down 10 of those languages, and I will explain to you all why they're insignificant and why I won't learn them. Let's begin. Number 1. Welsh. Welsh is a language which is generally spoken in the United Kingdom and is one of the official languages of Wales other than English. The main reason as to why I won't learn Welsh is because it is a very old and outdated language that has never risen to prominence, as English is the official language of the United Kingdom, but also because it is barely spoken anywhere else in the world other than Wales. And I also heard that its grammar and sentence structure is very hard to learn, and learning a language that has very hard sentence structure and grammar but is also not that known or spoken is a huge waste of time, so I'm not going through the stress of doing so. Number 2. Latin. Latin is a very ancient and outdated language of which there are barely any native speakers of anymore. It was the official language in ancient Rome, but the Romans don't exist anymore, and what is the official language of what was Rome today is Italian. However, Latin has been used today at naming certain nouns and scientific names for animals, but other than that, it has no use of communication and interconnection with other people. There are some Latin-based languages today that I will learn, like Italian and Spanish, but the original Latin that was spoken by the Romans isn't needed to be learnt. Number 3. Basque. Basque is a language which is spoken in the northwestern part of Spain, and it isn't at all a prominent language and isn't a language that anyone needs to learn. It isn't the dominant language of the country that it's in. There are barely any native speakers of it, and why would I need to learn Basque when most of the peoples in Spain speak Spanish? The only language that I will need to learn if I want to communicate with someone in Spain is Spanish, so I'm not going to waste my time learning Basque as it's a very insignificant language. Number 4. Pashto. Pashto isn't really an insignificant language, unlike all the other ones that I've mentioned on the list so far, but it is the official language of Afghanistan along with Dari, and it is rarely spoken outside of Afghanistan. I haven't heard of it until recently, but I'm never planning on learning it because I'm never planning to visit Afghanistan, at least not in its current state, as there's a war going on there, and it is also not that known of a language either, so it is not really worth the time to learn just to try and communicate with an Afghan and get shot by some gunners and warmen in Afghanistan. Number 5. Maori. Maori is an ancient Polynesian language which is spoken by the native Maori people of New Zealand, and nobody really cares about it as most of the people in New Zealand speak English, so it's not the dominant language of the country it's in and is mainly spoken by the native people there rather than the general population. Because of that, I'm never going to learn it, and I don't think I will ever meet a Maori person, as they're a small tribe that almost nobody in the world knows about, and Mairai is a needless language other than for communication with New Zealand natives. Number 6. Luxembourgish. Luxembourgish is the official language of Luxembourg, and in case a lot of you don't know, Luxembourg is a micro-state nation in Europe, and as Luxembourg is a very useless country that no one cares about, why would its official language have any more worth at being learnt? Not only that, but I also don't want to go to Luxembourg. Not that there's a war or anything going on there, which there isn't, but I just don't want to, and so I'm not going to learn the language of a country that is useless and that I don't want to go to. Number 7. Georgian. Georgian is the official language of Georgia, not the US state, but the country in the Caucasus region of Europe, and it isn't too insignificant of a language, but isn't that very known of a language either, and I'm not going to learn Georgian for 2 reasons. It is spoken in a country that almost no one cares about, and out of the writing of all the languages in the world that I've seen, Georgian has some of the weirdest writing out of any other language in the world, as it looks like a bunch of squiggles that can easily be drawn on paper by shaking your hand around. So I'm not going to learn Georgian as it's not that known of a language and isn't a language that I'd want to read. Number 8. Afrikaans. I bet nobody who's watching this video has heard of the language Afrikaans, but it is a language which is spoken in South Africa, and just like Georgian, it's incredibly weird and isn't something I'd want to speak, because it literally looks like an extremely mixed up and malformed version of Dutch, and the way that sentences are put together is just beyond crazy. That's not to mention that they already speak English in South Africa, so I don't think I'll need to learn Afrikaans, as it's a very insignificant language and doesn't look like something I'd want to speak. Number 9. Khmer. Khmer is the official language of Cambodia, which is yet again another country that almost no one cares about. I know that some of the languages I've mentioned so far are the official languages of countries that almost no one gives a damn about, and Cambodia is yet again another country on that list. And I will say that Khmer comes from a country that almost no one gives a damn about, and it also looks and sounds like a mix of Thai and Vietnamese. Is Khmer a mix of Thai and Vietnamese? I don't know, as I don't know Cambodia's history, but if that is the case, then that reinforces me not wanting to learn it, but I don't want to learn it anyways. And finally, number 10. Dzongkha, or however you pronounce it. I don't know, but I don't really care, but it's the official language of Bhutan, which is another country like Georgia, Luxembourg and Cambodia that almost no one cares about. I can't think of anyone who gives a damn about Bhutan, as it's a tiny little country in Asia between China and India, and just like the other languages that are official languages of countries I don't care about, I'm not going to waste my time or even think about learning Dzongkha. And everyone, those are 10 of some of the languages that I'm never going to learn to speak, and when I become a polyglot one day, you will hear me speaking some of the most common and known languages in the world, but you won't hear me speaking any of the languages that I mentioned on this list. And also, before I wrap this up, I'm just going to tell you all that I believe that this week I will be broadcasting my 8th free-for-all stream on the weekend, so stay tuned for that. I also think that I will be uploading a lot more excessively this week, so stay tuned for all the videos that come out as a result of that. And until next time, my name is StarkyBooty32, and thank you for listening, humanity.